What's going on, everybody? It's Zen. I want to talk about rewiring your brain again today, breathing patterns, and how to get into these advanced states, how to help your learning, to improve it, to put your brain into a position of being able to learn at a much faster rate of speed. And to also, this gets into lucid dreaming, focus, and getting out of body. The picture on the right is one of those stereographic pictures where you have to look beyond the picture. Maybe like a foot beyond the picture. There's different ways to do it, but you want to relax and allow the image to pop out into your consciousness. There's an image there of a telephone. And it might take you a while. These things used to be popular, but I haven't seen them too often lately, but they're extremely good for the health of your brain, for getting you into altered states, and it will automatically, you'll notice you'll start looking at it, and it will change your breathing pattern almost unconsciously. Now that I'm telling you that, you're obviously aware of it, but if you start to stare at it, you'll all of a sudden notice that your breathing changes. And what's happening is you're crossing your eyes and you're accessing a different part of your brain. I believe it's area 39 Broadman, but again, that really doesn't matter a whole lot. It's just the idea of what part of the brain you're accessing to open up. I would call it hyper learning. And you're also getting into just a more comfortable theta state, which allows you to ingest information more readily. So, this connection here, as I'm always trying to show everyone a different way of observing the world, observing their experience, and changing the point of reference. And it's to really get people out of duality, of what they believe duality is, because it's been time and time again completely confused. It's delivered to you as if duality actually exists, when in reality it does not. You either live in a singularity or in a multiplicity. There's nothing that's against something else. There's just radiances of the same source material. And this one thing that you can do to get to that point, so you can observe and understand and comprehend things at a higher level, really has to do with coming to terms with the fact that you have one body and one brain. We have to stop dividing it into two. We have to stop saying things that just aren't true, like men and women are opposite. They're complementary. They fit together. They're not opposing. Your left hand and your right hand are connected to the same body. You should have been using them your entire life. You shouldn't be singular-handed. You don't walk down the street without your entire body that you take with you. You're not. People are more dominant towards a imbalance in their body, but it's not separate. And here's the way that I like to explain it to people. I'll make a little idea here. And it's this whole Vesca Pisces, you take two circles and put them together, and when people start to exploring that, getting into sacred geometry, and then we make all these beautiful creations, and a lot of people, it's fun to look at, and it does a lot to actually draw them out, because now you're accessing different parts of your brain, and you can kind of start to develop different patterning inside of your head just by doodling. And so just from there, here's the idea: is we take these two things and we put them together, and we start to divide things. We think that somehow this consciousness of life is split, and we go left and right, and we put everything to the left and the right. We divide things to the left and the right, and we do it male and female. And the way that I break it down for people initially is that the magnetism and the electric are in opposite directions, but it's only that both of those things come out of the same source code. Both of those things come out of the same source. And when we flip this thing from left and right, meaning the consciousness of the left and right brain, the male and the female, and we put it on a pole, we put it on what your spine is, we put it on instead of looking at it left and right, we look at it up and down, we start to see something different. a lot different, and we start to observe the world differently. We start to, when you observe it with your two eyes, those two eyes are making a connection somewhere. So here's your two eyes, and that's what triangulation is. We use these images of triangles all the time, saying here's male and here's female. Here's your elevator. One goes up, one goes down. And when you put them together, you get your star. It's not just the Star of David, but that's the most popularized term of it. And it just has to do with the binding of those two forces. But again, we're trying to get out of this even trimurti understanding of how things may exist. And if we are able to take our consciousness, these three things, because it's the male, the female, and the child. If we take those three things and instead we look at it this way, and here's your spine, and those three things again are your spiritual understanding of the world. That's from way up here. And here's your mental understanding of the world. And here's your physical understanding of the world. This is the dense plane. It really, that's what happens. Everything goes through it. The spirit, the second self, the you out of body, you at a certain position in life, where you sit as a physical body. If your spirit is completely in your body, you've collapsed your spirit through the mind and into your physical body, and that gives you your essence of what you are completely. But as things have progressed on this planet and where we are now, we take things and we put them to the sides, and then we start chopping it up this way. And there's so many different degrees to the left and the right. But again, as I'm trying to get back to this concept of reorganizing the way that you perceive any experience, in even your reality, by taking these two eyeballs you have, and this has to do with this theta graph here as well. It has to do with crossing your eyes. It has to do with your pineal gland, and the reason that people's eyes, when you're looking at something, you're never looking parallel. You're never looking straight ahead. Both of your eyes make a pyramid. Both of your eyes go to a point, and that's the point that you focus on. So you're making a pyramid with your eyes, and that becomes the third dimension, and that's the balance. So you're really looking at one thing, at one point, at one reference. There's no splitting. Now, if we get rid of all of that, and this is the idea of looking through one eye, and if we take that one eye, which is, there we go, which is yourself, and we look at it again, and this is important, take your spirit that is in the ether. The spirit has to do with, this is why you burn something and it goes up into the ether. Your mind is the connection point for your physicality. So it dips down from your spirit to your mind, and then down in your physicality. So it's the idea of people, you go, where did you get those thoughts from? Well, those thoughts came from the grand scheme, the grand architect, the soul, which the soul is the everything, and it sits up here. It sits all the way up here. And then pieces of the soul come down, fractioned off into what are spirits. You're a spirit, your friend, your dog, all of these spirits come out of this higher realm, which is the soul. These are where the angels come from, right? And they come down through the spirit and then into the mind, and your mind gets to qualify whether or not you physically become and act out what that spirit said, what the spirit said to your mental body. And there's also a way of just bypassing the mentality completely, and that's more of a deeper meditation. But for most people, there's still the experience through the mental mind and the ego. And these things are not to be, everybody trying to get rid of the ego. It doesn't work that way. Your ego is your housing, your storehouse for your experience and for your information. And without having it, you have no experience and you can't learn. The only way you can learn is from a reference of a past event and a position to think about the future, and that's where you get your memories. So don't fight the idea of getting rid of the ego. It's the biggest game out there. Everybody, don't think, just love, do all. No, you need to have this centered point here to access basically memory and to put your housing of your experiences. Now, as we get into this plane here, which is the physical realm, people think of demons. And and this again, down here, is called the soil. And this up here is called the sun or the soul, right? It's the same thing. One is coming up from the earth and one is coming down. And this is why you see things looked at as angels. The angels they're floating, they're etheric, they're coming down. And this is even talking of fallen angels. And they're coming from the soul or the singularity above. And the things that come out of the soil are usually considered demonic or demon, but they're not. All they are, I mean, you can use that word, but just as a falling angel can have what would be termed something as a bad impression on the world or a bad impression on your life, something coming up could be better than. Something could be at a lower level, literally a demonic something climbing up out of the soil, and something from an angelic realm could be falling down and be at a higher level, but because of the, I would say, velocity, the corkscrewing down to this, you can get brought down by angels and you can get lifted up by demons. The difference here is one is coming out of a very dense realm, a very cubed realm. So that cubed realm, which is what the salt is, which is what Saturn is, which is why time exists on this planet, is to exist in the soil, is to go through the seeding process of the seeder or Saturn and to get incubated in the soil. And these demons and these lower essences of self, which all are, everything is self, gets lifted up. And these angles from the top get pushed down. And they meet in the middle and they become what you are. And you have an option of going farther up or going farther down. And it's just a matter of, again, let's get out of this paradigm of thinking that things are left and right. There is no left and right. There is no male and female. There are no opposites. There is just direction of up and down. And this has to do with why you have a spine. This is why you are a single entity in person. And when you bind in other groups with people, with even an individual, another individual, it still isn't producing polarity. It's giving you an opportunity to have friction and grow something, but it's the essence of it, again, is the most primary thing that we're looking at here, is to go up and down. It's like a bobber. It's like it's understanding the soil and the soul and the angels and the demons. And so, I put this picture over here to the left, and I think it's a good idea of the technical holographic matrix of what your brain might look like. I thought it was an interesting picture. And if you looked at it as a circuit board, like this could be an organic, if you looked at this as an organic brain, you would see there we go. You would see the brain in its very wiggly methods, right? But this is to look at it. So that would be the feminine version of the brain this way. But then the masculine, this is how the masculine would idealize nature. And so even this masculine nature, which is the L's and the angles, these corners, the reason cities are built like they are is because they're built by men. So it's just taking and realizing that these L's and these angles in cities play a part with the zeros. The zeros and the one is everything. They're not opposite, they're linked together. And there's the straight up and down. There's what we need to focus on. Even in your brain, everything sits in the middle. Your pineal, your pituitary, things aren't sitting off to the side. Your organs are straight up and down in your body, the most important ones. And the ones to the left and right are balancing organs to balance you out. And so these octaves and these tones that are being played are throughout your body as well as in your mind. And by changing conceptually how you believe the reality to work and where consciousness to come from, you change your entire perspective on how to access information, how to learn, how to participate in reality, and what you'll see in things. So I hope you guys enjoyed this lesson. And again, we'll get farther into these little stereographs over here and get into like how it works on your brain, what it's doing to blood flow, to where attention goes, energy flows. And so if you're attentive to thinking about your mind, if you're attentive to opening up neurological pathways, that's exactly what will happen. that combined with everything else I suggest to people to do with cleansing opens up things. And to get into these astral realms, people have been asking about um, getting out of body and getting into more lucid dreaming. And a lot of the things that happen initially when you're cleansing is because you're getting rid of so much. Uh, you're A lot of people say, oh, they're not getting into the dream world. There's so many things that go into it. Whenever you're doing a cleaning process, there's times that you'll have very highs and very lows. There's times that you'll be able to easily get out of body. There's a lot of things that go into um, how to dream and how to get out of body. It's not as simple as oh, just have a good thought, wake back to bed. Like wake back to bed is going to really be helpful, but if you have a poor diet and if you're sleeping on a bed that has uh, steel coils in it, if you're putting inorganic materials on your body, there's a lot of things that go into how it's going to make it more difficult. Just as it's hard to run in quicksand. So as you're going through a cleansing process, there can be things that you can do to heighten the ability to dream, to get out of body, and the method to do that, besides the different kinds of teas and different kind of herbs, uh, is to, again, I've pointed this out in other videos, is to do things that make the body tired and keep the mind awake. You want to amp up the mind and make the body very tired. And you also, the thing that you can do from a learning level, from a brain level, is to look at these stereographs, and it will, between that and the other learnings that I've put out there on breathing patterns and mudras and how to hold yourself and and by looking at something like this, you're actually pushing blood to different parts of the brain, thereby accessing different levels of your consciousness, and being able to be more imaginative, and be able to dream in color, be able to dream in different ways, and it starts to loosen up things, and then new connections can be made. Because a lot of this, again, is when you're cleaning out, you're losing a lot of connections. You no longer have the salts in your brain and the things that are actually, you get in these dreams and you're like, well, that was a reoccurring dream. Well, those are the salts there. Now you get rid of them and you're not having that dream anymore. So it's about actually implanting into yourself more of a vision and a consciousness on your own, rather than having the vision and consciousness of what a piece of salt would be and the information that might hold. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. We'll chat soon, y'all.